Hi, everyone. It's Shannon, and welcome to the Art of the Feminine podcast. I just realized that I need to do the chat pop out, so I'm going to do that really quick so I have it after we get started here. All right, welcome. Now let's see. I want to pull up the screen. Okay. All right. Happy equinox and happy full super moon in Libra. It's March 20th. We're doing the live stream today on the day of the event, and which I only do every once in a while. So it's really good to actually get to be with you on this on a very special day. Today is the astrological new year. It's the first degree of Aries, which marks the beginning of the sun's journey northward. And we've talked about that in several videos along the way, but in the mysteries as well as in astrology, we look at the entire the psyche of the planet as the sun moves towards the north, because the north represents the ascending cycle. And so it represents the time of year when, as a collective, our consciousness is beginning to quicken as the sun touches the earth and rises above the ecliptic and begins to vibrate all of those things that are in the ground and that have gone inward for the winter. And so it begins to bring new life. It's a very healing season, and it's absolutely, oh my gosh, okay, it's so good to be here. I just have to say, Mercury's in retrograde in Pisces, and I am feeling this retrograde in such a different way, and I would love to hear from you guys and hear how you're feeling it, because it's like it's underwater, and it's conjunct Neptune at the time of the both the equinox and the Libra full supermoon. And so it's a deep energy for the mind. And we're going to talk about that. I want to say, let's see. I want to say a couple things. Please, you can find me on Instagram at Art of the Feminine. I'm starting to do some posting that corresponds to the videos on this channel. So the Instagram is Art of the Feminine. And I also want to say, I'm going to mention this at the end, that I'm teaching light body yoga on May 1st, and there will be more details as we get closer to that time. And so getting started, I think we will start with, I did some writing this morning. I did some writing specifically for the video. There's about 3 pages, and then we'll look at the planets. We look at the archetypal energies. We're going to be looking at the archetypal energies of justice. We are going to look at the law of love and justice. The title, the theme for the video is World Justice. We are at an incredible time in the collective consciousness where we're beginning to feel that the balancing is coming. Justice, as we'll talk about when we look at the archetype for justice, is nothing more than a balancing. Justice is really music, because it's harmonizing. When things get off balance and they go too far one way, we throw out a note that helps to entrain and bring back the equilibrium. And the law of equilibrium is incredibly powerful. In fact, in the occult wisdom, the law of equilibrium is the law of the great work, and Libra represents this archetype. And so just checking in the chat. It's really nice to see everyone. If you don't mind, if you could let me know if you could hear me, and I'll just check back with that just to make sure. Oh, happy equinox. Happy equinox. All right. So I think I'm going to start with what I wrote, because I think that's a good way to kick this off. I wasn't here for the Pisces new moon. I did some writing about that instead. So it's been a few weeks, and it's really good to be back. Okay, so the Libra full moon. We cannot underestimate the power of equilibrium and balance. And again, this was written just this morning. Sometimes when I'm getting ready to do a video, all of a sudden, bam, something drops in right away. So this came in just this morning. It is the true power. 11, which is the number of justice, is the number that rules this energetic archetype. We also see 8 is another version that represents the above and the below. So as we see, the 8 represents that harmonious flow between above and below, and 11 is the mirror, the one and the one that mirror each other. And so both of those represent the law of justice. Equilibrium is the basis of the great work in alchemy. Ancient, and that's an ancient occult maxim. Equilibrium is the basis of the great work in alchemy. We talk about alchemy. A lot of my work is grown out of a deep relationship with alchemy. So I work with the alchemical teachings and the archetypal wisdom. In other words, until we have learned to balance both within our own vessel, in the vessel of relationships, and in the world, in relationship to the outer circumstances, we will have no power. And so I'm going to read that again. Until we have learned how to balance and create balance in our own vessel. So it starts with our own inner dynamic of our mental thoughts and our emotional energy. We're all doing that inner alchemy, where we're learning how to have emotional balance. It's where our power comes from. We have to go through our transmuting. We have to go through our dark night of the soul. But ultimately, the real journey begins after we have fallen into the depths of emotional chaos, and then we get to rise from the ashes, and that requires a certain amount. It's discipline sounds really harsh, but it's a certain amount of awareness and awakeness and creativity to learn how to balance the forces within ourselves. We also, after we balance the forces within ourselves, we're asked to balance in relationship. And this is all about this Libra, super full moon. Libra is all about the power of this alchemy of balancing in relationships. No balance in relationships, no true power. And so all of us, it doesn't even matter if we're a hermit. We eventually have to go into the world. We harmonize with the God force. We harmonize with the above and the below, the within and the without. Then we put it to the test. We put it to the test in our friendships, in our communities, in our intimate relationships, very, very much so in our intimate relationships, and in our relationship with the world, because even with politics, with media, with social media, now there's a constant balancing that we're doing, and we can use these things. We can use them instead of being used by them, which is pure mind control that we see on the planet in the masses right now. We can use them because in the law of polarity, when something pushes on you, it gives you the welling up, the rising up of your own internal power. When there's nothing pushing on us, and this is for all of you who, including myself, who have faced great pushback and great challenges in the process that we're going through, from all different areas, but things that have asked us to really dig deep and get our strength. When there's a polarity or when there's a force coming from the outer, it gives us the opportunity to push back against it. And it's when we're pushing back that we get that push and pull, and that we create power. We create dynamic tension. We see this in astrology. We see this in oppositions, and we really see it in squares. When we're looking at astrological aspects, and that's why astrology is brilliant for learning how to master the forces. So we have to do the world, we have to do our intimate relationships, and we have to do ourselves. There is a quote that often gets kind of misrepresented or misunderstood by Krishnamurti that says, his quote says, "It is no means of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." And this quote is used a lot because it gives us comfort. Sometimes when we're really going through it, we can draw upon, this man who had, a lot of status as far as having a voice, a masterful voice in the world, who said, "It's no means of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." And what he really meant by that is that he didn't mean that we can't pursue balance. And so oftentimes when people are lashing out or feeling crazy, they'll throw that quote up because it reminds us that society is off. In general, the collective is, the masses, there's a pretty off dynamic happening. However, His quote, I believe, after much reflection on this quote over the years, is about not being in denial, not being in denial of what's happening, meaning the kind of well adjusted that comes from when just turning our back on everything and not having anything to do with it, seeing ourselves as an isolated piece, a part, a particular of the whole that has nothing to do with the whole. Anybody who makes music or anybody who's doing any work where you're working with a whole knows that nothing stands alone. It's that everything is a dynamic symphony, and the of health and holistic health, we know that everything dances with all the other parts of creation. We are so interconnected, and that's what science is beginning to understand, that every part contains the whole. Master the part and you will master the whole. um, we can't be in denial. We can't. Sometimes we have to turn away and go inward when we want to create our new, when we want to write our new music, when we want to give birth to something new. But we know that once we put it out there, it's going to begin to harmonize with everything else that's out there. It's all about harmonizing. Um, and finding the balance in the relationship so that it's beautiful, so that it's not discordant, so that it has harmony and it has light. It gives off a high frequency and it makes us feel good. When we're doing that, it's the heart that opens. This vortex in the heart begins to become incredibly powerful. That is where our power is, and that's what this Libra full super moon is activating. It's activating the balance within the heart. And so back to the quote, he didn't mean that you can't feel well, but he meant that you can't be in denial. We can look at things and have enough detachment that we can sound our own note with confidence and with love. We can contribute without being afraid. We can't be afraid of the sickness. The society is sick. I mean, as a whole, when we look at things on the collective level, as a whole, there is a sickness. There's a drowsiness, a sleepiness. Our limbs we're not quite awake. But spring equinox, it's spring equinox in the north, represents that time of year where the sun is quickening. The rays of the sun are spirit, and they begin to vibrate all the cells within us. And that's the vibrating of the heart chakra. And so it's the vibrating of the buds. It's in the science of the seed, in the occult wisdom, the seed represents everything, because in the seed, surrounded by this hard shell of ignorance, is the nucleus for the power to birth an entire cosmos. Every seed, when you think about this, is so crazy. Every seed actually contains the information for the entire cosmos. And so, oh, it's nice to see you. Hi. Oh, hi, everyone. Good to see you. Hi. Oh, it's good to see familiar faces. Okay, so let's keep going here. So so by not being healthy, it doesn't mean just fall into a hole and get sick and give up. Don't give up. It doesn't mean to give up. It means don't be in denial. That's coming from me. That's how I see it. The number 11 is justice. Justice represents karma, because this archetype represents how we mirror with the world and relationships. In other words, karma is nothing more than that dynamic interplay or intercourse between something on the outside. There's a lot of I talk about this a lot, but it's just something I'm really exploring right now in my work. There's a lot of the teachings that talk about the dynamic world and about leaving the phenomenal world behind and just ignoring it. I feel like they're really missing a piece, and I feel like enlightenment in these can only go so far. Somebody asked me once, I think it was a couple videos ago, what I meant by enlightenment. By enlightenment, I mean transcending the ego consciousness and transmuting of the body of pain. So in enlightenment, we begin to integrate the ego into the full dynamic of the divine soul essence. And I work with this a lot in Light Body Yoga. It's really what that platform is designed for, to prepare the way for birthing that consciousness. But it's transcendence of the ego state, which is the state of bondage. It's the state of limitation. And so in order to and to begin to transmute that, we have to interact with the world. And this is where I have a little bit of difference that I'm really seeing in the divine feminine wisdom, is that we have to bring in the mother love. We have to bring in the mother love, because the mother love, and I've been talking about this forever, but it's coming in such a new way, that we have to not abandon things, and we have to learn unconditional love. We also have to learn commitment. The mother love, and North Node is in Cancer right now, so this is big at the time of this equinox and Libra full super moon. The mother love, the true archetype of mother love, is a commitment, and it's unconditional love, because it loves beyond the ego. It loves beyond appearances. It loves beyond the changing form. It doesn't say you're too old, you're too ugly, you're too uncapable, you're too. It doesn't. The true archetype. Now I know on this planet in 3D consciousness, we've got a lot of mother healing to do. We have the mother wound, but the true archetype of mother love is the ultimate love of creation, of the creator and the created, not being abandoned, feeling the connection, feeling that being held as we grow and being nurtured as we grow, even though there will be hard times, still knowing that parent isn't going to abandon us when we get old, when we get lazy, when we check out, when we are a drug addict, when we're confused, when we've hurt other people, when we've committed crimes. Never. The mother love is never going to. It's always going to stay there. It's going to throw us what we need to grow, because that's what a mother does. A real mother is going to give their child what they need to grow. Sometimes it's not pleasant, but most of the time it's very, very loving and nurturing. So relationships are huge. And karma is created by, just think about this. So everything, I wanted to talk about karma today. Everything that we experience as karma in our life has come from relationship. It's come from how we've spoken, how we've thrown our emotional energy, how we've judged, how we've abandoned, how we've just gone into denial. How intimate relationships are really, really big. That's one of the things we're healing on the planet, is intimate relationships, because at some point, not for everyone at every time, but at some point we do take a final initiation where there's an intimate relationship involved. And this is why it's gained a lot of popularity on the planet in the past 10 years. It's really, really grown. When I first started doing relationship alchemy, it wasn't as big. It's huge now, because we realize that at some point there is a balancing that comes from going into the depth and power of divine love with another soul. This can happen in different ways, but there is one. At some point we'll probably do I'm not going to go too much deeper into it. We'll probably do the final alchemy, which is very, very deep, and it involves a form of tantra. um, all right. So just think about, at this Libra full super moon, how you can, every relationship is, even if it's with a group and with the world, is an opportunity to transmute karma. Because every time we get it and we rise above the reactive, the judgmental, this is really, really deep work, because the judgment is really, really deep. There's many layers of it, but we have to transmute it, and then we get so much energy and power from it. um but it's, relationships are an opportunity. So looking at the axis of Aries, where the equinox, this is the Aries equinox. So whether you're in the northern hemisphere like I am and it's spring, or you're in the southern and it's fall, it's the Aries equinox. So we really, for the equinox and solstices, we look at the sign, because the sign represents where it is in the procession of the equinoxes, in the great alchemy of the solar journey, which is the awakening of the spirit, and it's the alchemical union of the masculine and feminine. Where we are at, Aries is where the sun is, and the moon is in Libra. And so Aries represents the great I am. It's the self. And so we're balancing the self with the group or with the relationship. Aquarius represents the group, as in the group trajectory and the group dynamic, but Libra represents we. It represents the relationship. It's the actual intimate connection and emotional response we have to anything that is outside ourselves. And so, how we, Libra is the seventh house. It represents relationships, it represents marriage, it represents everything about how we relate to things that are outside of our own ego. All right, I'm going to move this along and then we're going to look at the planets because there's a lot going on with the planets. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'll finish this up really quick and then we'll look at the planets. So, all right, so Aries is the great I am. The way we act will always be a reflection of the inner landscape, and taking it a step further, our auric field will always be the substance of our feelings, both conscious and unconsciousness. So everything about a person, the way I sound, the way I'm speaking, it's reflecting my aura. It's also reflecting my inner state. Now, the inner state also involves the nervous system. It involves the emotional state, and it involves the pace of the mind. And so we fluctuate. We're in a lunar state. We wax and we wane. We have good days because of the archetypes and because of the planets, the archetype astrology that I work with. We're under different influences, and the archons work, the dark forces work through the zodiac in the same way. It's really the archons that work through the zodiac. The sun is at the center, and that's where we want to be, but it's really the archons that are able to link up with us when they find our weak link. And so depending where we're at any given day, wherever there's something happening, wherever there's, they call it a cross in the auric field, because the auric field is you're wearing your natal chart in your field. Wherever there's a karmic cross, the archontic, the psychic energy can zap you there and bring in karma. After we transmute some of these things, those sparks in our field no longer exist and we can't be zapped by them. I know that's kind of a funny way to look at it, but it's true. And so we can see our weak link. When you follow your chart and you see what's happening, you can reflect on it and say, okay, I know I have karma there. I definitely get triggered there. So I'm going to be aware, and I'm going to use this square or this opposition or this conjunction or this transit of a very, very challenging outer planet to transmute it. In that way, we master it, and in that way we love it. We love this. We love astrology. So equilibrium calls us to make intelligent. That's very intelligent or wise use of the law of polarity. I posted something on Facebook and on the Art of the Feminine website on the blog yesterday. It was actually the image I used from Emily Balovit for this, which is beautiful, beautiful art, visionary artist that I post a lot of her work. It's the high priestess. She's done the tarot and she's done the high priestess. So we see the high priestess sitting between the pillar of severity and the pillar of mercy. So the high priestess, and this has everything to do with Libra, represents the balancing force. She's holding the Torah. She's holding the book of wisdom on her lap, sitting on the cube of space. These two forces represent the dark force and the light force. They represent the forces of hate and love, or fear and love. And she's in the center, and she shows that she activates that center pillar, which could be seen as our chakra column. It could be seen as a central pillar on the tree of life, which I draw a lot from in this wisdom that I work with. But it's the harmonizing of those forces. Every single one of those points is a harmonization of dark and light. Every single one. We as human beings are walking embodiment of the harmony between dark and light. So in other words, in order to attain this wisdom, we have to come into density. And that's why having life here is so valuable. So very valuable. Having a body is valuable because we get to do the great work, and we have all kinds of guidance that's watching over us as we do this, but it's really our turn to do this work within our physical body. And some of us have maybe perhaps done it at another time and are here helping to share the wisdom, because we're going to be having more and more of a mass awakening. All right, so I think I'm going to so that's the high priestess. We'll talk a little bit more about her. So yes, so she activates what's known as the undeviating law of justice. Justice is here. It's on the planet. I'm going to come back and read the rest of this after we look at the planets. Justice is here. So just talking about all the suffering we see in the world, all the insane chaos, the darkness we see in the world, and I often talk about the light, and so I like to keep it positive. But today I'm going to just mention that there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of discordant energy, there's a lot of lies and deception. And I've done a lot of videos about deception and some of the archetypes of deception, but we live in that field, and so because we're all harmonizing with that field, we have to integrate it. We can't be here without feeling it, especially some of you who are here to do great, great, great work. Some of the highest master energies on the planet are doing huge amounts of alchemical balancing right now, and you most likely you know who you are. It's kind of hard to miss it, because if you have a deep, deep leaning towards the wisdom, and you're also experiencing some discord, you're like the super galactic center. You're vacuuming it in, you're transmuting it, and then you're giving it back out. And we're going to talk about that. So let's look at the aspects that are happening today. I'm going to just check the chat and see what's going on in the chat. See, yes. Oh, nice to see you. It's nice to see you back. Nice to see you back. Oh, all of you guys. Oh, it's so nice to have you today. All right. Oh, interesting. It doesn't say that there's anybody on the live stream. I've had, you know what? It's Mercury retrograde. There's been in fact, a lot of technology issues in the past couple days. So, all right, let's look at the planets. The moon. Oh my God. I took pictures of the moon this morning. It's huge, and it's a super moon. It's the third super moon in a row. It's the fifth moon at 0 degrees of a sign. There's lots of symbolism all over the place, just kind of showing us where we're at. The moon is at Libra, 0 degrees. The moon is conjunct the super galactic center. So the super galactic center, and I've been learning more and more about the super galactic center. I've heard some other people talking about it, and I've been doing more research. I'm very, very tuned in with the galactic center in Sagittarius. But the super galactic center falls between 1 and 2 degrees of Libra, and it's a huge vortex, a huge um, center point or nucleus of radiation and cosmic energy that's for healing and transmutation of our trauma, specifically in relationships. So we have this super full moon conjunct the super galactic center. The full moon at 0 degrees, the galactic center at 1 degree. The sun is in Aries. So the sun is in the sign of I am at 0 degrees Aries, conjunct Chiron. Chiron is newly moved into Aries. It's going to be there for the next many, many years. Chiron is at 1 degree, exact opposite of the super galactic center. When I looked at this alone, it was enough to do a whole video about. I mean, there's some other really, really good aspects that we're going to look at. But just first of all, the sun and the moon opposing each other is alchemy. It's relationship alchemy. It's the masculine and feminine. The moon represents the magnetic feminine, the lunar matrix that we live in. The moon governs the matrix. The sun represents spirit and the emissive power of the spirit above, of our higher self. We talked a lot about it when we talked about the hermit archetype in the Virgo. It was the Virgo full moon video that we did, I think, about 4 weeks ago. So we have that polarity, that opposition between the sun and the moon. So it's a time of mating. It's when we get opposites, we get that third principle. We have the opportunity to call it in, so that we have not only the sun and the moon, but we have the moon conjunct the supergalactic center, sun conjunct Chiron. Supergalactic center, Chiron, both about massive, massive healing. And so you might ask yourself, where is it? I mean, really, what is it you're healing right now? The moon happens later tonight. It's 9:42 p.m. Eastern Standard Time where I am. And so right now, if you're seeing this live, you've got time to really, really, and I always recommend meditating about an hour before, up until the exact moment of the full moon. That's when the portal opens. Once you learn how to contact that energy, it's huge. It's really big. It's really big. so then we also have the mating of Chiron with the supergalactic center. And so that shows that Chiron is being, the supergalactic center is like a vacuum. It's like the energy of Chiron is being vacuumed in, whirled around, and then dispersed again in a healed way. Think about where you're wounded because it's in the sign of I am. Think about where you're, and really, I actually, I actually have Chiron in Aries. Yeah. It's so Chiron is in fact, yeah, eventually I'm gonna have a Chiron return. So Chiron is it really represents our deepest wound, but that wound that we've come to heal. And when we heal it, it gives us so much humility and it gives us so much power. It's a kind of silent power. It's the divine mother power. Chiron represents an archetype of the deep, deep divine feminine. And so when we heal our wounds, we become we master our wounds, we become pretty quiet about it, meaning it doesn't mean we won't be in the world, but there's a humility because we understand power in a whole new light. We understand real power is oftentimes very silent. The divine mother is the dark night, and she's very silent, and but she's got huge power. Everything is birthed from her. So we're healing Chiron and make use of this supergalactic center, and I recommend reading about it. There's wonderful articles out there. I might come back and post a couple, but this energy alone is about understanding how we can be true to ourselves and our own personal power and yet still be in relationships that have integrity. This is something huge that I want to say, not just integrity of the ego, meaning what people can see. Many of us know how to look good and act good on when we're on in public or when people are looking. But the true sign of a master is when your inner thoughts and feelings are in alignment to that energy of divine love, meaning it doesn't mean you won't have discerning thoughts. We all have to have some discerning thoughts, but that oftentimes gets used as an excuse to spiral. It means that our real control, the reason that the dark is so powerful and the divine mother represents the dark is because all that really matters happens in the unseen. Everything that really counts goes on behind closed doors. Everything that's real power is happening on the internal landscape. And so we live in this dazzling world where everything just pops as power and platform and fame and celebrity and this and that. And we think, oh my God, it's so much power. Everyone, it's a form of power, but you can have power in the outer world and not have even begun the real alchemy on the in. So we call it the inner alchemy, but for a very, very real reason that as you begin to really understand that everything that's happening inside you is sending out a signal, it becomes more and more important. And eventually you don't do it just so that you can have a better life. Eventually you do it because you're the divine mother. In embodiment, you realize that what you're giving out is healing the world. And you realize that you want the world to be healed because you are the world. You are the world. We are the world. The I am is Libra. Libra is the I am. There's no difference between the individual and the group. And so we're bringing it into a higher octave, but we're in the 7 lower heavens right now. We're beginning to alchemize and ascend. You hear me talk about ascension sometimes. We're getting ready to move into a completely different universe, literally. So okay, let's move on. We'll talk about Uranus and Taurus. I'm still planning to do a big write-up on Uranus and Taurus. Uranus and Taurus is really activating the divine feminine. It's really Venus. Venus is the Earth is the container. The Earth is our body as well. It's Malkut on the tree of life. It also is very close to Venus and Netzach. It's really close to form. There's force and form. By the way, the two polarities also represent force and form. Force and form. So Venus represents form on one level. On another level, she's force, but she represents what comes into form. And she also helps bring dynamic energy into form. With Uranus and Taurus at 0 degrees, we have the energy of Uranus, which represents really the quintessence of the galactic center, getting ready to do a number on the earth, on our bodies. I believe this is the 7-year cycle of ascension that's really, really, and I looked this up. This is so cool. At one point, the North Node will go through Cancer, through Gemini. The North Node, I'm going to do a video about this. The North Node is going to meet up with Uranus in Taurus. There's a day where, I don't remember the day, but I found it. There's a day where the North Node, Uranus, and Mars are all going to meet, and I think it's 18 degrees of Taurus, which is a really great degree, are going to meet there. And that's a couple years down the road, but it's going to be a powerful day. The North Node, which is our collective north, with Uranus, the planet of ascension, in the sign of Taurus, with Mars, the fire of the Holy Spirit. So we've got that coming. We've got that to look forward to. Mars is in Taurus as well. So Mars is in Taurus at 23 degrees. Mars is in Taurus 23 degrees. 23, there's a lot of 23s in this chart. 23 is the sign of the woman. First of all, it's a very, very esoteric number that's really, really related to woman, which is the feminine. All of us, we all contain the woman. All of us contain the man and the woman. 23 is a sign of the woman. And Mars is in this sign of Taurus. It's in the sign of Venus. It's an earth sign. It's a fixed sign. It's slow. Mars is slow in Taurus. It's slowed down. So it's taking on some qualities of the sign of Venus, which is also the archetypal sign of the Hierophant. The Hierophant represents hearing, inner listening. It's the Hebrew letter Vav, and Vav represents the nail that links the above and the below. The nail is something that binds or that joins. Vav is the inner listening of the sign of Taurus that brings together spirit and matter. So this is a really, really powerful placement of Mars and Uranus. Uranus is going to be there for a long time. We're going to talk a lot about that. Mars, it's special today because Mars is squaring Venus exact today at this full moon and on the equinox. So we have another masculine and feminine polarity. Venus in Aquarius, 23 degrees, an exact square. Venus is in the sign of the star. It's in the sign of Zadi, the Hebrew letter Zadi, which represents the hook that meditates and catches the wisdom from below. There's many other meanings of Aquarius, but Aquarius is also, it's wisdom. There's wisdom in Aquarius and genius, inventiveness. So Venus is in this sign. Venus rules Taurus, but she's in Aquarius. But Venus is really linked to Aquarius because the sign of Aquarius is the star, which has the 8-pointed star in the archetype, which is an archetype of Venus. They're squaring each other. So we've got Mars in the sign of Venus, having a conversation between each other about power and form. Power, Mars, and form. Power is being slowed down so that it can listen. It can get wisdom. This is what we see with Chiron healing the sign of Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars. The sun is also exalted in Aries. The sun is in Aries today. The sun is exalted in Aries. Mars rules Aries. And so Mars, and it's healing, and it's the archetype of the emperor. Mars is in Taurus, slowing down, listening. This is an opportunity for Mars to listen and to take in some of the wisdom of Venus, squaring it from Aquarius, which is the age of Aquarius in the group. We're getting more and more signs of things are like speeding up, but on one level, things are moving in slow motion. There's both happening at once. And I wanted to ask you guys today, I wanted to ask you how you're experiencing time. We're going to talk about time for a few minutes in just a minute. Time is changing. The matrix exists in time. And so another thing to say is, oh my God, I'm going so far out today. But another thing is to say is that what we think inside ourselves, the emotions we have, it shows up in time. So we might think, why can't I create instantaneously? The matrix, we're in the time matrix. And so there's a disparity between having the thought and seeing it manifest. Thank goddess for that, because think about how many negative thoughts you have in a day, how many millions of thoughts we have per second, but how many negative thoughts you have in a day that you're not even aware of. When we're having negative thoughts, we are so happy and lucky that they're not manifesting. How many times have you found yourself spiraling or even having a thought about a situation that you realized was not wisdom? Eventually, you got to a new place and you're so happy you didn't manifest what you were thinking that wasn't positive. It happens all the time. And so until we want to, the reason there's this disparity between creation on the outer is so that we can harmonize and so that we can choose what's best for us. We don't even realize how negative we are and how mind controlled we are. We are under such, the matrix is beaming to us such so many influences per minute. We have no idea what we're taking in. The thoughts we take on when we're on social media are telling us buy this, do this, take this drug, go here, do this. Like, I mean, there's so many different things that I don't even want to say some of them, but they're coming in constantly. And so another thing is learning how to have command with the power of Aries of that. Mars and Venus is a really, really big energy at the time of this full supermoon in Libra. All right, the North Node is in Cancer. There's a video I did on the North Node in Cancer. If you don't have too much insight, I recommend either looking up and reading something about it or watching the video. North Node in Cancer. This is the time of the mother energy being rebirthed on the planet. The mother energy is the archetype for divine love because it really represents the ability to give life. It's the it's the feminine principle that births everything. I mean, we all have a feminine principle, but on the collective, the feminine births the entire human race. On the planet, the feminine planet is birthing life, food, is bringing the cosmic ether and bringing the Christ force on through the feminine onto the planet. That's why we say Venus is the transmitter. So the North Node in Cancer is really big. The North Node is opposite. Well, the South Node in Capricorn is conjunct Saturn and Pluto. And we've talked a lot about it, but it's still really big. Saturn and Pluto. Saturn at 19 degrees Capricorn. Pluto at 22 degrees. They're conjunct. They're getting close. They're going to be conjunct all the next year, but they're going to have a major exact conjunction next year in January 2020. So Pluto is at the south node. It's also, I believe it's Pluto's own south node, and somebody sent me an article about that, and I'm going to take another look at it. I think Pluto is conjunct its own south node, and I might talk about that in the next video. But they are conjunct. They're both conjunct the south node, which is karmic, that of the collective right now. We're experiencing a little bit of karma at our south node with Pluto and Saturn riding our south node big time. Eris, the planet, the goddess asteroid Eris is at 23, another 23 degrees of Aries, squaring Pluto, squaring Saturn, squaring the nodes. Eris is the sister of Mars. It's the female version of Mars. It's the female warrior. It's the divine feminine warrior. It's the this fabulous mythology with her that's really fun to look at. I won't go into it now. But I recommend looking up the mythology of Eris. Eris is in Aries, and she is squaring Saturn, Pluto, and the nodes. So the other thing I want to say I'm really feeling is Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde is in Pisces. It's in the underbelly. It's in the underworld. It's in the 12th house. It's a very different, we've had a lot of, I think Mercury's been retrograding a lot in fire signs. Now it's in a water sign. And so it's not only just in a water sign, it's in the underbelly itself. It's in our subconscious mind and in our unconscious. So just know this Mercury retrograde, it goes till the end of March. It's really bringing our mind, it's giving our mind access to those things that we hide from ourselves. And it's conjunct Neptune. Neptune, the ruler of Pisces, is in Pisces at 16 degrees. 16 is the tower. So it's a lot of energy at 16 degrees. 18 degrees is Mercury retrograde today. 18 is the number of Pisces and the moon, the dark moon. Those two planets are conjunct, and it's really, really deep energy at the time of the full moon. At this full moon, I see this full moon is really about going in, getting quiet, sitting with what do you disown about yourself? Where do you feel ashamed of who you are? It doesn't matter if you have done, that saying, every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. We have all within the cycle of our lifetimes, and even in this lifetime done things that hold us back because we haven't owned them. This is the kind of energy for owning what you see buried in there, what's dark, and then doing what needs to be done, even if it's just sitting with it. The divine mother, that darkness will transmute it if you sit with it and you just let the light of the full moon be with it. We can transmute it. And that's what the super galactic center is about. It's about learning how to own what we have disowned about ourselves. That's the true power. Because when you see a master energy that's out there, and you will spot this, of those that are holding a position and, really being vocal about being enlightened or awake, we have to be careful, because sometimes from the divine feminine point of view, you can see that thing that hasn't yet been addressed. And it's no big deal. It's no judgment. But in other words, no, we're not getting out of here until we see those things. We don't have to see every little one, because there'd be way, way, way too many to see. But we have to see the groups. There's an archetypal. That's why the archetypes are powerful. What archetypal group do your wounds fall into? And then you can do the work with it and turn it into pure power. So that being said, happy astrological new year today. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the collective. Let's see. Just to make, Jupiter is at 23, another 23 degrees Sagittarius, moving towards the galactic center in Sagittarius. We'll be talking more about that, but that's going to be a beautiful day when that is an exact conjunction, because Jupiter is already spiritual. It's already in its own sign. It rules the sign of Sagittarius. It's going to be at the galactic center in Sagittarius. It's going to be an amazing receiving download of deep, deep spiritual as well as material abundance. And we're moving towards that. The conjunction is on, but we're getting closer to that. So let me just see if there's anything else. Be called the undivine. Okay. This is not a static action. So talking a little bit more about the law of balance. Balance is not static, it's a dance. So that's why relationships are a dance. When we're doing our dance in relationships, there's going to be upsets. It doesn't mean, I don't mean in any way, I don't want to put out there that it means it's perfect, it's flowery, it's harmonious, it's always on. It's a dance. It means someone will throw you something negative, you throw out something positive. Someone will throw you something that shocks you or triggers your wound. You'll dig deep. You'll use that force to push back with something empowering. And which, if you've ever noticed, if you've been in a relationship and you have the conscious awareness that when someone comes at you and they're really growly or they're really upset, or they're in their ego or their wound, and purposely they're out to kind of trigger you. We do this in relationships. There's those moments where you have that divine mother energy and you're like, oh, I got this. It's okay. Oh, I get it. Oh, you need me to do this? No problem. I got it. No worries. And they're just like floored. They're taken aback. Like this could be your partner. And it's like, wow, what a gift that was. It dismantles and dissolves and disarms. That's not always the answer, but it's huge. When we find that place, that sweet place where someone comes at hard and we go back soft, so relationships are a dance. Even things that are negative, even people who are your worst nemesis, your trigger, use it to grow, because really this is a game. We're meaning we can play at it. We don't have to suffer at it. So that's art. That's why Venus rules Libra. Venus rules Libra, and Venus is the ruler of the full moon, and she represents the artist in Libra. All my friends who are Libras are all artists. It's like Libra, because artists know how to balance the shadow and the light. They know how to balance music. They know how to balance clothing. They know how to balance. Like Libra has a tremendous gift for seeing things in balance, and so the art is very highlighted. Creativity and love. Art, creativity, and love are the true way to heal the negative, because then we just feel good, and we gain a lot of power, and we gain a lot of light, and we transmute a lot. Art is huge. That's why I named Art of the Feminine, Art of the Feminine. So the one who can balance has great love, and the great work is truly great love. The great work, alchemy is love. It's nothing more than love. When there's a saying, our planet is taking its initiation in love right now. We're in the age of love, the age of Aquarius. Um, so it begins in the heart. The goddess Maat rules Libra. Talked a lot about her, and you see her with the scales, but she also represents the heart. Um, and she rules justice and balance. The heart, um, okay. So the heart. So warriors can be well-meaning, but they have to. Even if you're a warrior, you have to open your heart. A warrior with heart is a warrior that cannot be conquered. If you're a warrior and you have heart, you've balanced. Heart will show up different for everyone, but heart, real heart, the heart of the warrior is the prize. So understand and they understand the power of their own heart to create reality. The ultimate power is the law of love. And so that's the law of love. And how is that working on the planet? What do we want to say about that? Is that we are here to be proactive creators. The matrix is ruled by the moon. So the way the moon works, it governs the lower astral plane. The matrix is like the supergalactic center that sucks up our thoughts and our feelings. So this is what I want to say about everything that's happening. I think I'll end on this note. Oh my God, there's so many questions. I'm going to say this and I'm just going to look or see if I can read some things. So the matrix is ruled by the lunar energy in this dimension. And so everything we think and feel gets sucked up into the lunar force. The magnetic pole of the moon is reading every single thought on the planet is getting sucked up. And then on the astral, it creates a blueprint, a negative, and it beams it back down. This happens in time. And we know that because the moon waxes and wanes and represents a form of time. What we are seeing on this planet right now, in terms of all the horrible things, all the war, all the deception, all the non-graceful rulers and leaders, and it's all been created a long time ago. This is the thing we have to understand, is that what the projection we see now was created in time. It happened on the higher astral and was beamed down. We have to change it in time unless we can access no time. The heart is no time. But we won't get into that today. Maybe we'll talk about next time. When you can go in there, then you can really create. Right now, so if you get caught up, seriously caught up and embattled with things that are happening right now, and you take it on as an aggressive ego consciousness, you're going to get pulled into time. You're going to be stuck in the time matrix. It's okay. We do that. We do that so we can learn. But if you can see, this battle is just it's going nowhere. We see a little bit of a rise, we see a little bit of a fall. We see a little bit of a rise, we see a little bit of a fall. That's the moon, waxing, waning, waxing, waning. We from spirit are meant to create from a higher place. So we want to be smart, we want to interact, but we want to, each time we step out, when we're plugged in to the higher matrix, the heart matrix, each time, the womb matrix, the feminine matrix for this plane, each time we do that, we forget it. Forget about it. That trumps this matrix. And that's why there is such a huge effort to push that down, to distract so much. We're so distracted. You cannot access that. Once you learn how to access it and you can do it, you can be in the rhythm of life. We can't back out of the rhythm of life, but we have to, there is a time. And so this is to go back to those Eastern teachings. There is a time to go into the cave, into the Noggle, into the unseen. We talked about the unseen is where every great thing happens, and push everything else away. And from that, we can begin to create the higher blueprint. Then when we step out, we walk with authority and power. We walk with the scepter of the Empress. We walk with the power. And oftentimes we're very discreet about that. And we'll save that conversation for next video because we're at the end. I just want to say thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to pull up the chat, see if there's anything. Gratitude. Looks like you guys were just all talking to each other, and yeah, keep healing. Just keep doing it. Heal, create, sing, dance, connect with friends, check in, make sure you're, as much as you can, clear that stuff. It gets very, very, very subtle. I'm working with levels that you get to the point where you just see that little thing rise up. You see it, you catch it, and then you catch it like zadi, like the fish hook. You get it, and you toss it back. You toss it back into another pool, not into your own pool, because we don't we want to do that. If we want to do that, that's where the real power is, and that momentum is building now. Oh my God, it's so nice to see you. Yay! Oh, this is so much fun. Okay, so I hope to be back next week. Blessings, many, many blessings. Light Body Yoga is happening May 1st. Information on artofthefeminine.com. Art of the Feminine on Instagram if you want to check in there. And I think that's it. There's always good things happening. And so I'm sending you many, many blessings. And use the spiritual energy at equinox. It's a gorgeous day out today here. Use the sun. Let it heal you. Let it awaken you. Let it give you the divine spiritual impulse to do what you've got to do what you've come to do. Because guess what? You can do it. Just do it. All right. Namaste.